You say hi, but I'll tell you when people start coming. You're live.
Hello, everyone. This is Brian here with Anita Good Design, and we're bringing you another live stitch out today. We're going to give people a couple minutes to get tuned in, and then we'll begin the project here. But we do have a wonderful project planned for you today. It's kind of quick, pretty simple project, but it's going to utilize some techniques I think that you'll find a lot of fun if you haven't played with these before. And of course, we'll be here to give out prizes, go over any questions you have, etc. during this stitch out. So we got some people coming in. Welcome. And we are going to be doing the Anita's Express Origami Brooches today. That came out back in June of 2020, if you're wondering whether or not you have it in your library. But these Anita's Express projects are great. I think they're designed to be around 45 to 90 minutes long max per each design. Obviously, that's going to depend on the machine you have, how experienced you have as well. But these are pretty quick and simple projects and teach you a technique, which is most important. Hello, everybody. Good to see everyone tuning in. From Germany. Hello, Lori Dean. All right. I also here have a moderator on the other end who will be relaying as much as possible to me in regards to questions and helping me divvy out prizes that we're going to give out as we go along through this project. So even though this is a live stitch out for the Origami Brooches and Anita's Express, don't feel like that you have to keep up because this will be pinned and you can go back and rewatch it from our, I believe, Facebook page. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
And YouTube as well.
And YouTube as well. Thank you. I know I was forgetting something. So this will be rewatchable. Typically, what I like to do is whenever I'm presented with a tutorial that comes in a video format, I like to watch the whole video through and then go back and actually attempt to play, pause, do through the video itself. Welcome, everybody who's still coming in. We're going to go ahead and begin here in just a second. And just to kind of go over what I had mentioned as some of you were joining on. We're here with our live stitch out event. We're going to be doing, once again, the Origami Brooches that came out back in June 2020. It is an Anita's Express. We printed out the tutorial here so I can kind of, not that I don't specifically know what to do, but I want to make sure what I'm doing is exactly how you are going to view it within the tutorial. I think that just makes things way easier for you as well. Of course, I'm going to be giving away some prizes. And just to let you know right off the bat, because we are doing this live stitch out today, if it's something that you would like to get, this Anita's Express Origami Brooches is on the website right now for $10 off until 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time today. So you can go on there right now and get it. You can watch the video, decide if it's something you want to get. Totally up to you. Either way, we have that discounted $10 off for you today. So hello, everybody. More people tuning in.
We have a question about what machine you're stitching on today.
The machine I'm stitching on today is the Baby Lock Solaris. This is Solaris, right?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. I just want to make sure we didn't get in one of the newer models. So we're on a Baby Lock Solaris. People often ask that type of thing, like what type of machine we're stitching on. And I don't want you to get caught up in the machine we're using because our actual software transcends all machine formats. It doesn't matter if you have an industrial embroidery machine, if you have a Janome, a Brother, Baby Lock like we're using here, Viking, FOF, it doesn't matter. We have the machine file formats for you to stitch out on within the tutorial book. And I'm not going to be going over, within the actual design software rather, and I'm not going to be going over the machine interface. That's something, if you need more experience with, I would reference your dealer or who you purchased the actual machine from. We're going to be focusing on the technique and learning how to make an origami brooch, regardless of your machine type. So let's go ahead and dive right in. I'm going to go ahead and get this started. And as things are stitching, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions relayed to me by Lauren and give out prizes as well. So to start, to let you know exactly what we're going to be doing. And again, I printed this off, so you're going to see it coming up sheet by sheet. But the Origami Brooches, it's a Anita's Express project. We're going to be doing the fox here, and I'll show you how to identify where that is in just a moment. when you go into our, basically any of our projects that needs Express, etc., we know exactly what you're going to be making. So we give you a materials list that you'll find inside as well. I'll hold that a little closer for you so you can kind of see. In this Needs Express, it also shows you an image of each design in there also. So we're going to go ahead and go through this, but when you're ready to stitch out, I would go through the materials list first and pre-prep what you would like to use. Now I'm going to be following two different sets of instructions here. The first is going to be the picture steps, which are literally pictures showing you step by step how we're doing the technique. But since I'm doing the Fox, that file is OB3 on your computer or wherever you have it stored. So that's where you'll go for it. And and under what I want to go over with is when you're using the picture steps, we only have picture steps showing you the technique of how to do the design. For the exact number steps that reference the step your machine is on, you want to use the number steps. If you're new to this and you're not familiar with the technique, you want to use both in tandem with one another as you're stitching out. And I'll reference why that's important as we move along. But OB3 is the file we're going to be doing the Fox. And the technique we're going to be doing today is to create a freestanding brooch that is basically going to use a fun material that we have used over the years. If you've had any, like baseball caps is probably the easiest reference, where it has the raised embroidery on it. That uses a material called puffy foam. Now, before we get into all the different questions that are probably going to pop up, where we got ours, this one is from Foamies, is the brand. We're using a 3mm puffy foam for this particular project. Before you go out and buy some, I would go ahead and just check with your local dealer to see if they have any in stock. So that, one, you can help support your local business by purchasing any of the notions of materials that they would have on hand as well. But 3mm puffy foam is what we're going to be using as the special material for this project that we're doing. Once again, hello to everybody who's been tuning in. If you're tuning in now, again, this will be pinned. You can go back and watch it at a later time from the beginning. So I've already gone and loaded my design file for the Fox. And as I'm referencing the instructions, in the materials list, it's telling you to use a water-soluble stabilizer. We're using a tearaway stabilizer. It really doesn't matter which one you want to use for this particular project. And I'll kind of show you as we go along the differences between them as we get to the end of this project. Some examples of what they look like when they're finished. This is, Lauren has pre-stitched some of these out to show you, but we have a butterfly here, and I'll see if I can show you it at an angle. You can see how the satin stitch embroidery is raised there, utilizing the puffy foam for that. And this one, which was torn out of the tearaway right before I started, is essentially a little messy on the edges. And I'm going to show you how to clean that up, which is why a lot of you steer away from tearaway when you're doing freestanding. But we're going to go over my recommendations for how to clean up the fibers that are left sticking out of that satin stitch when using tearaway. So referencing the picture steps, it says under step A, go ahead and hoop your water-soluble stabilizer or wash away. We hooped our tearaway. It's perfectly fine. And we went ahead and loaded the design. Then we're going to run the first machine step under step B, which will be the placement stitch for the base fabric. So now that I've read that, I'm going to move over to my number steps, because I tell everyone who's new, don't press the start button until you've read your picture steps and your number steps. So step 1, I can look on my machine and see I have 9 steps. Step 1 is a placement stitch, then place base fabric. So we've gone ahead and pre-prepped out our materials. I have my base fabric I'm going to use for this project right here. The colors you're going to see are going to be different than what are in the actual book, which is perfectly fine. Our colors are not an end-all be-all, so don't get stuck on the colors. Make it suit you when you're doing it.
I would put the dark orange in so yeah, they could see.
The dark orange?
Thread, so they can
see.
Yeah,
sorry about that. You got it. for the actual.
For the placement stitch, because you have white.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, never mind. Lauren is telling me we had this white thread preloaded, and when we're doing live stitch outs, or even when we're doing tutorials or instructions, it's often hard for you to see what's stitching out if we use a thread that is tonal with the stabilizer. So to better help you guys see that, I'm going to go ahead and thread a contrasting thread to do this placement stitch in the machine, and we'll run the placement. So the first technique we're basically going to learn here is applique. This is a very standard technique, very simple. We're mimicking traditional applique using digitizing and an electronic embroidery machine to accomplish that. All right. So now that I've gone and contrasted that thread, thank you, Lauren, we'll go ahead and run the first step, which is our placement stitch. So to need a good design, if you are new to this, we use a paint by numbers approach. I'm not going to place something in the hoop until I have a placement stitch. This placement stitch actually allows me to conserve fabric, because traditionally I may have to hoop a whole piece of fabric to get this done, whereas now the placement stitch shows me exactly where the fabric needs to go. And if you are very stingy with your fabric, which a lot of people are because it conserves on money you spend on your materials, you can actually place it to maximize your yield. So when I cover this placement stitch, I'm putting the fabric right side up, and I'm making sure that it's completely covered all the way around so I can't see any of the placement stitch. Now, before I press the button again, I'm going to go ahead and reference the picture steps. Step C, take a piece of base fabric, place it over the placement stitches, make sure it's covering on all sides, and then I reference my machine. It says I'm on step 2. My number steps tell me to do the tacking stitch. Then wait to trim fabric. So I'll go ahead and get this running and then explain that. Now, when you are new and you're learning our techniques, once you kind of get our techniques, you're really not going to be looking much at the picture steps at all. And you're going to kind of know mostly what to do in the number steps. But when you are new, it's important you read the entire line and go back and reference it again. Because when it says tacking stitch, and then it says wait to trim fabric, there is a reason for that. And I'll mention that as we get stitching. Now that the tack down stitch is complete, which basically just tacked our fabric down to the stabilizer, we'll go back. We're on step D in the pictures, which is why these are lettered, because they don't correspond with the number your machine step is on. Told me to run that tacking stitch to secure it to the stabilizer. And now step E in the picture steps is saying, following your design's numbered machine steps, continue through any decorative embroidery steps and be sure to stop before the second to last step. So now I can kind of just put the picture steps to the side for a bit, and we're going to go ahead and run through all of our embroidery steps. So basically we're on step 3 when I reference my machine interface. Again, if you're not quite sure where to view that on your particular machine, just contact your dealer or whoever you purchased it from. Step 3 in my number steps is giving me a number. This number is referencing the specific thread color we used in the picture you're seeing, but I'm going to be using a different color. So it's saying 182, which is the thread color, fill shading inside the fox. I'm just going to go ahead and continue with this burnt orange thread that I have, and we'll go ahead and start running this. Now, as this is running, why did the previous number step say wait to trim fabric? Well, since I'm actually going to be doing a lot of embroidery on the inside of my tacking stitch, if I went ahead and pre-trimmed it all, then there's no room for that fabric to draw in without pulling it through the tack down stitch. So you actually risk there being a gap if you pre-trim when we're embroidering before we do our finishing stitches. So in other words, when it says wait to trim, that means there's a risk for it to draw in because of future steps. So we're just going to wait on that. While this is stitching, Lauren, can we go and give away some prizes?
Sure. We have a question first.
Yeah, go ahead and ask the question.
The question was, do you need a specific thickness of puffy foam, or will any thickness work?
I I would always, let's see.
Well, it doesn't
here.
specify.
Okay. There are multiple thicknesses to puffy film. So you can, I think for the most part, we use between 2 and 4 millimeter. I know it goes up to 6. You might be able to get away with that. But you have to keep in mind that we digitize for puffy film. Typically, that satin stitch would have a pull compensation to it that would be tight relative to the type of fabric it is going on. Loftier fabrics need a higher pull compensation to allow that satin stitch to rise. With puffy film, giving it basically digitized, it's programming it to loft up even more, so to speak, over the puffy film. So that's going to be within a specific range. The thicker the puffy film you use relative to the pull compensation we gave for the satin stitch could result in an unsightly mess. So I would usually stay within the 2 to 4 range with the thickness of puffy film for, unless otherwise specified in the tutorials. If it does not say, just stick between 2 and 4 millimeters. It'll be perfectly fine. And there's also puffy film. If you plan on washing any of this, you can also ask your dealer, or if they don't have it, you can search online. There is puffy film that is water resistant. So some is not, and some is. So make sure you know that before you use puffy film with any of our techniques digitized for that before you wash. So Lauren, what can I give away today?
What about this Adidas Express right up top?
Sounds good. We're going to be giving away for the first prize this vinyl zipper bags right here. This was an Adidas Express that came out in February of 2017. Vinyl zipper bags. This was a lot of fun. We used clear vinyl as that. See that?
Type the word.
Yep, the word is going to be bags. As long as you type bags in the comments right now, Lauren's going to go through in just a moment and pick a winner to win this project. But bags is the word you need to type in the comments in order to be in the drawing to win this prize. And we'll pick that winner in just a moment. So go ahead and type bags while we're stitching this out to have the chance to win this vinyl zipper bags. And I'll show you the front cover there. But once again, that was a February 2017 release. I know lots of you love zipper bags. So again, bags is that keyword there. All right, and as Lauren's going through and you guys are typing in bags, I'm going to go ahead and continue with the next step on the project, keep things moving. So next, and I do this every time. I've taught hundreds of events all over the country, and the most common way I see people making mistakes is by just looking at the machine and looking at their screen and then just pressing go. When really, the best habit you can get in when you're starting is to look at your number step on the machine. It says I'm on 4 of 9. I look back at my number steps in the tutorial, and it's telling me the color that they used for this one was 2016 for leaves. So I know it's leaves. I'm just going to use whatever color I want. Let's do it that way. I'm going to use this mint green, that color. Again, the colors are totally up to you. There is only one spot in this tutorial that I'll get to where the color matters, and that's at the end when we do the satin stitch on the puffy film. We want our satin stitch to be as close to the color of the puffy film as possible. So if any of it sticks out, it's not sticking out like a sore thumb.
We have our winner.
We have a winner for the vinyl zipper bags. Lauren, what's that name?
Christy Gray.
Christy Gray, congratulations. You are the winner. They'll reach out to you and get your information so we can get that prize on out to you. Congratulations. All right, we've got more prizes coming up, so don't go anywhere. All right, so I've gone ahead and loaded my thread for step 4. And I'm going to go ahead and let that run. So again, colors are pretty much your choice. One question I get at events a lot of times is there will be a step that uses, say, a white color. And then 2 steps later, after you've changed threads, that same white color is going back on top. And some ladies are like, why can't you just color sort it so that we don't have to change the threads as often? Well, one, our digitizers aren't aware of what our creative department is going to pick for colors because it's completely, unless it's like a tapestry or something that's very specific, the colors are interpreted. Maybe we used white and then another color and then white again 2 steps later. Maybe you want to do something different. Or maybe there's layering and digitizing that requires that to happen. So there are reasons for that, and I don't ever recommend color sorting on your machine either if it has that feature, because it can completely throw off all of the steps as well. So just get good at changing your thread. you will get good. I think after a month in, when I first started working on the creative team, I was a pro at putting thread in the machines. And we use all sorts of different machines, home machines. The industrial Tajima machine is my favorite, but not practical for any of your home applications unless you're starting a business. All right. So now I can look at my machine. This step is done. I'm on step five rather. I reference my tutorial again, and it says the veins in the leaves. Well, to me, I want the veins to contrast with the leaf. I'm just going to use a darker color green there. So we'll go ahead and thread the next color there. And for those of you who are wondering, because I know you can't completely see this side where I'm actually putting the spool of thread in, I am not using a spool cap. And I'll tell you why. Spool caps can cause problems when they are used for the wrong kind of thread. So thread is typically wound, and for the most part, in 2 different ways, as far as you'll be using anyway. This type of thread is wound to where you can see it kind of going up and down like this. Other types of thread are wound to where it's completely straight across. When it's wound kind of going up and down like this, the thread is meant to come off the top of the spool. It's specifically wound to come off this way. If your thread is going straight across and doesn't have that angled look to it, can't think of the right word, but you can kind of see there. If it's going straight across, unlike this thread, it's meant to come off the side. Now the machines pull the thread this way off the spool. So if it's meant to come off the side, that spool cap is going to prevent it from jerking the actual spool and causing issues for you. When the thread is meant to come off the top, what happens a lot of the time is it will get wrapped and caught in the spool cap. And that happens quite frequently. So you don't need to use a spool cap, and I would say you don't want to with thread that is meant to come off the top there. As I'm throwing thread in the trash can. Just a tip I give people at events, because I see people always putting their spool caps on at events when we're using thread that is not intended for that. All right. We're also, I've got a flash sale I'm going to announce when we move on to the next step here in a moment. And I'll get into what that project is. But I also want to talk about another prize I'm going to be giving away here in just a moment. Let's see where I am on this step. Okay. I'll go ahead and switch threads here and start, and then we'll give away the next prize. So again, I look at my machine. I see I'm on step 6 of 9 now. Step 6 says 291 aqua flowers. Well, maybe I want, let's see, my flowers to be burgundy. So we'll go ahead and put that on. Get it threaded here. All right. Just make sure that's in there. So now that we've got that machine step running, which will run for just a few, first I'm going to announce this prize. This collection is very old. You would have never gotten it in all access. It's a special edition, and it came out even before I started, which was over 6.5 years ago, and that is the Tree of Life. It is a tapestry. It's it's a classic, an old favorite of everyone's. And essentially it uses quilt blocks to make up the entire tapestry scene of the Tree of Life, even the borders you see around there. In the full size, in our A size, which is very large, it makes it up to 54 inches by 77 inches. Goes all the way down to 34 inches by 48 inches in the smallest two sizes, once they're all sewn together. And I've seen them in all shapes and sizes over the country. People bring these in a lot. The best thing about this Tree of Life, which you can type in tree, will be the word. Tree, again, is the word for this. But the best thing about this is the actual flowers, or excuse me, leaves rather, that have the names on them for the family tree are freestanding. So as your family grows, you can add more leaves with new names on it. Or if there's a divorce and you're bitter about it, you can just take the leaf right off of there later on. Totally up to you, but tree is the word to type for that prize. It's a special edition, great value, $100 value for the full price on that. And again, you wouldn't have had this in all access either. And Lauren's going to be pulling the winner there in just a moment for that. What I'd like to announce with the flash sale is this is going to be 50% off until 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time today. You can go online and get it on our website at eatagoodddesign.com. Reverse cutwork block pillow. It is a project that uses reverse cutwork quilt blocks to create it. So there's 4 quilt blocks making up this pillow, and we show you how to do the whole thing on here. So you can actually create a beautiful pillow. We used a print fabric for the reverse cutwork, and I'll kind of explain how that works here in just a moment. All right, so now we're on step 7 of 9 in our project. And step 7 is telling me 501 center of flowers, so basically the buds of the flowers. Then place back fabric on back of hoop. This is important that I read that whole line because I don't want to move on to the next step without knowing there's something else I need to do after this embroidery step is done, which is what that's basically designating.
We have a winner.
We have a winner. Who is that one?
It is Ruta Ward.
Ruta Ward, you are the winner of the Tree of Life. Congratulations. I'll get your information, and we'll get that prize on out to you. And I can't wait to see what you do with it. Send us in pictures. All right. We get the, again, step 7 here running, and then I'll kind of explain what the rest of that means. All right. So we're about to jump back to our picture steps here in just a moment. So it's important that when we read step 7 in the number steps, and it said 501 center of flowers, dash, then place back fabric on back of hoop. Once step 7 is done running, before I move to number step 8, I need to make sure I do that. Now, what does it mean, place back fabric on back of hoop? I now know on step F in my picture steps that it is showing me what that is referencing. We finished all the embroidery steps, and now it's going to tell you what to do there. So I'll get into exactly what that entails when this is done running, but I just want to emphasize that you really want to take your time in going through the instructions in their entirety when you're new to this to make sure you don't miss anything. That is the most common mistake I see at events. My most common mistake when I first started as well. Okay, so while that's actually finishing up, I'll talk about that in a minute. Okay. So step 7, the center of flowers. Once it's, is it still going there? Yes, it is. So we'll talk about this right now. No, it just finished. Okay. So on step F in your picture steps, now, before I take this out, I want to re-emphasize this. I know there's something I'm supposed to do based on what step 7 told me. Once it's done with the center flowers, then place back fabric on back of hoop. Okay, so I can see on my machine step, it's telling me on step 8, but I can't run that until I finish everything step 7 told me. So in the picture steps, which is step F, it's going to tell you to take your hoop out of the machine. So we're going to pull this out. We're using a 6x10" hoop here. You can use a hoop size that's closest to what you're doing if you want to minimize stabilizer waste. It's telling me to flip the hoop so that the back side is facing up. Do not pop your design out of the hoop. I'm going to see if I can position this to where you guys can kind of see what I'm doing. Again, the hoop is upside down. It's not in the machine. This is the back side. I'm going to take my other piece of fabric and put it so that relative to the way the hoop is facing now, it's facing right side up. So it's not the back side or the wrong side. It is right side up relative to where the hoop is facing. And we're going to tape this down. Now, we're going to be putting this on the back because it is a freestanding project. And when we do things that are freestanding, it can be seen from all sides. And we don't want any of this showing on the back. Any of those bobbin stitches, the lock stitch stitching as well. We want it to look nice and clean. So adding this fabric to the back will help give us a nice clean look to it as well. When I put fabric on the back of the hoop, you have to keep in mind that on home machines, such as this one, pretty much any brand, it's going to be rubbing on the bed of the home machine. So I always tape the corners. Different tutorial writers have different preferences, which is fine. It's based on experience, but when you're new, I always recommend putting it on the corners and pressing the tape flat. I am using pink embroidery tape. It's meant, it sticks better to fabric. You can reference your dealer to get some of that. And you want to make sure the tape is pressed nice and flat because as it's rubbing on this bed, if the tape were to grab because it wasn't pressed flat, it can pull and stitch it all cattywampus, which is not the word of the day.
Do you want to tell them why you didn't trim your fabric at the beginning?
Yeah, so for those of you tuning in, as I mentioned in the beginning, we want to not trim our fabric in the beginning because you can kind of see a little bit here now that all this embroidery is finished. You see it's got some slight puckering around the edges, which is perfectly fine. That's not going to cause any distortion aesthetically in our actual design, but that tells me there was some drawing in of the actual fabric, that is. If I had pre-trimmed this before I did all of this embroidery, then it could have pulled the fabric inside, leaving a gap that would be unsightly at the end. So we like to run through any embroidery that can cause drawing into the fabric first before we trim. Now, honestly, right now, you could trim before you're in a step. I wouldn't. Just go ahead and run it because there is no more embroidery. This is going to tack down the back fabric to the stabilizer as well. So we're now on step 8 in terms of our number steps. And we're referencing steps G and H for this step as well. Step G is what I just went over in the picture steps, which is showing you how to tape it on the back. Again, you can see they taped the top and bottom of it. I prefer telling you to tape the corners. It's going to save you some headache. And step 8 in the number steps is saying tacking stitch, then trim fabric on front and back of hoop, and place puffy foam. We'll get into all that in just a moment. Let's go ahead and get this step running here. When at home, whenever you're running placement stitches and tacking stitches, I would recommend doing it in a color that is closest to the fabric that you are stitching on. Reason being is, now we're going to be using puffy foam, so it's not going to matter in this instance. But with typical applique, a satin stitch can may not have 100% coverage in terms of its density, and a contrasting tack stitch will show through that. All right, now that we're done with step 8, we're going to hold for step 9 because, once again, if I need to, I go back. Okay, it's done. What do I need to do? I always tell people reread the last step before you move on to your next step to make sure you don't miss anything. So again, re-referencing number step 8, trim the back fabric, or tacking stitch, then trim fabric on front and back of hoop. We'll wait to place that puffy foam. And step H was the tacking stitch in the picture steps. Step I is telling you to go ahead and trim it up. So it's kind of running in tandem now. So I'll go ahead and put this up here so you can kind of see me do the trimming. For those of you wondering why I'm wearing white gloves, it's because you get white glove service with Brian. Or it's because I also work at Stephen Wilson's art studio and I've been making collages for the past couple days and I've cut 4 of my fingers with the razor blade. So to prevent anyone who's squeamish, I'm just covering them up. Now, when it comes to trimming your appliques, we have a lot of different types of stitches, finishing stitches rather, that you can use. So some of them will require you to get really close to the tack down stitch. Others are a little more forgiving. Satin stitching is more forgiving. Obviously, raw edge and ragged edge are much more forgiving because you're supposed to have some of that sticking out. But I usually tell people, and let me see if I can get a better angle of what I'm doing here. I grab the fabric. You can kind of see that. Yeah, I'll just hold it like this. I grab the fabric and hold it taut as I'm actually trimming, and I'm using double curved tip applique scissors. I'll explain those in a moment because it just helps speed up the trimming process, especially when you're doing more intricate cuts. Sometimes I may skip a little area and then come back to it as I'm trimming this happy little fox, my little Bob Ross reference there. So again, I trim past that little area, and this is all just, again, based on your preference and how you want to do things. It doesn't have to look too pretty. What you're trying to prevent is there being too much of the fabric sticking up past that. You can see mine's really close. Down here, wasn't as much. You have roughly about 1/8 of an inch of forgiveness at most. So I trimmed the front. I'm going to flip it over, remove the tape from the back. And go ahead and trim that back up. So now you can see it's also tacked it to the back. My bobbin, rather, was white, so it may be a little hard to see from the camera, but trust that it is tacked. Speaking of bobbins, before we move on to step 9, this is a freestanding project once again, so you are going to see both sides. Unless you are using a white top thread for your finish stitch, which is going to be covering the puffy foam, I would recommend that you wind your bobbin to match the top thread. That way it's the same color on both sides. Or if you're like me, there's a lot of instances where I won't do that and I'll just find a magic marker that matches my top thread and color it in after the fact. Totally up to you. For scissors, I talk about this all the time, but we always get questions because new people are always tuning in. I like double curved applique scissors. The curve at the tip allows me to get into really intricate cuts easily with minimum amount sticking out. This second curve at the handle prevents me from punching the hoop as I'm actually trimming away. So you can see here, we've got the back trimmed up as well as the front. Now, if you're wondering what to do next, we'll go back and reread step 8, because again, I'm not moving on to step 9 until I'm certain I didn't miss anything from the previous step. Step 8 is saying trim the front and back fabric basically, and place puffy foam. What do they mean by that? How do I place this puffy foam? Thankfully, we have picture steps. So we've skipped through because we've done all the trimming, which was step I in your picture steps. J, K, L is showing you what it should look like. And now we're on to step M. In this tutorial, they used black puffy foam. As you can see, there is a multitude of colors when it comes to puffy foam. This is just a few examples. Lauren prepped this one just so we can kind of show you different options out there, but she gave me this orange puffy foam. And she made sure I was pre-prepped with a coordinating thread to go on top. So first things, which of course I just forgot to do because I talked about it, is we went ahead and pre-wound our bobbin with that same thread to match. And we're going to go ahead and change that out. Likewise, for any of you screaming at me while I'm behind the screen while I'm changing my top threads out because I've been pulling the thread back through the machine, just don't do it to yours. It'll cause more maintenance issues, but a lot of us here know how to clean the machines and everything else. I'm saying that to make excuses for myself because it's not me that does it. All right, make sure it's pulled through. So we've gone ahead and changed our bobbin out to match the top thread, and then I'll change the top thread out to match the puffy foam. So again, we pre-planed all these materials out. Recommend you do the same. All right. Once this gets running, I've got some more prizes, so don't worry. And again, this puffy foam is going to give us a unique look. It's just a fun technique to use. For those of you wondering, Brian, do I have to use the puffy foam? Maybe you want to do this without the puffy foam. You can. That's perfectly fine. The satin stitching may look, may draw out a bit more and look not quite as it would with the puffy foam underneath due to the increased pull compensation in the digitizing software. Okay. So we've got, and I was just double checking myself because I'm talking while I'm doing this. We've got the top thread. We've got the bottom thread that matches, or bobbin thread rather, that matches the puffy foam. Now I'm referencing step M in the picture steps. Take a piece of puffy foam rather, and use tape to secure it in place over the top design. So I'm going to completely cover my fox. Make sure that thread's not caught under there. And I'm going to look at the number step. In this one, it says 900, which is referencing black basically as a thread color, because in the tutorial, we use black puffy foam, irrelevant to the color you want to choose. And go ahead and do the puffy foam stitches. So go ahead and tape that down. Sometimes I go to jump ahead because a lot of times I don't use tape on the top side. More experienced you are, you can choose whether or not you want to, but I have to remember I'm teaching you proper technique, not Brian winging it technique. This time I'm not really concerned with taping the corners. The picture steps show them just taping the top and bottom of the puffy foam. That's perfectly fine because it's not rubbing on anything. All right. And step 9 is proceeding. So I want to jump back to that flash sale. This is the longest step in the process. So this reverse cutwork block, it's a flash sale for today. Again, 50% off on the website. The reverse cutwork block pillow, rather. I'm going to stand up and get a little bit closer to show you here. So what reverse cutwork is our top fabric is this orange fabric. The fabric underneath it is this print. So how reverse cutwork works is typically, with us, you're going to lay down 2 pieces of fabric in the tutorial. It'll do a series of marking stitches, and you'll just trim out the top layer of fabric to reveal the fabric behind it, giving it a reverse look. So instead of having your applique sitting on top of the base fabric, this is you can just think that as your applique is behind it, so to speak. It's not technically considered applique, but that's basically what it's mirroring in this instance. These are also done on 4 quilt blocks. The reason I bring that up is because we have a core set of fundamental techniques that are needed to design. And when you learn those fundamental techniques, such as applique that we've done here, doing a quilt block, reverse cut work, lace work, freestanding, etc. There's about 16 or so fundamental techniques, which is basically our principal techniques. Every single design, the tens of thousands of designs we've created over the years, are all applications of those fundamental techniques. So when I learn how to do a quilt block, it doesn't matter if I'm using it in a pattern for a pillow, a pattern for a waist apron, a tote bag, you name it. The technique is the same. And we use a technique called mix and match quilting as well. So essentially, if I got this collection, I did it and I loved it, but I wanted to use the same pattern with a different quilting collection, you can just follow the pattern for this pillow, stitch out the quilt blocks to the size that it says, and create your own unique looking pillows. Our mix and match quilting system basically means that all of our quilt blocks are designed to be in a set number of sizes based on standard hoop ranges. So if I stitch out an A-size quilt block from this collection and an A-size quilt block from another, they're basically going to be the same size and can go together or fit into patterns that call for specific sizes. So again, reverse cut work block pillow flash sale day, 50% off. And to reiterate for everybody who's joining a little later on, before I give away the next prize, the design that we're doing today, the Origami Brooches, which is Nita's Express, is also $10 off on the website. Both of those specials are good today until 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. Lauren just posted that right up on the screen for you, the banner. Now, Lauren, we're going to give away another prize here.
Okay, let's do it.
See, we're about 30% in. After I give this one away, would you mind getting me another one? Give away two
That's
prizes.
fine, no problem.
Okay, thank you. So this one here is from me to you. And it's basically creating, you just learned freestanding in this technique. This is freestanding. Remember, I just referenced that fundamental technique. So what I want you to type in for this one is gift, just the word gift. Type that in the comments and we'll pick a winner. So gift is the word to type, and I'll tell you about this. February 2018 is when this Nita's Express came out. And it's basically creating freestanding gift tags that you can put on presents for multiple occasions as well. Gives a lot more meaning to a gift, I think, when you're presenting somebody with something you actually made. But these are quick and simple, freestanding, using the same technique, water-soluble or tearaway. I'm going to give you the whole materials list in there as well with the tutorial once you go through that. But these make a great addition to gifts that you are giving to others. So again, from me to you is that name. Gift is the word you type in, and Lauren's going to pick a winner from that. So to kind of really reiterate things here with our fundamental techniques, and I always do this over and over, almost every time I teach anything, because I think it's extremely important that you know that things are very simplified here, but can seem very overwhelming. So in order to simplify things, we want anybody of any skill level to be able to kind of jump in and be able to do our stuff. In order to do that, we basically are mimicking traditional embroidery and quilting techniques with digitizing software for electronic embroidery machines. So we have, again, a core set of fundamental techniques. When you learn how to do applique, even though there's different finishing stitches to it, the principal technique of applique is the same. Whether it's raw edge applique, satin stitch finish applique, blanket stitch, the principal technique is the same. Placement stitch, fabric right side up, tack it down, do any embroidery, trim it up, and then run your finish stitch. And that same thing applies to all of our fundamental techniques. So really, you don't have much to learn in terms of technique. You basically just have a little bit of practice to be able to do any of our collections. All right, so we're 50% done with this stitch.
I have our winner.
Oh, perfect. Go ahead. So the winner from me to you, Lauren, that name.
Patty Biddleman.
Patty Biddleman, you are the winner from me to you. Congratulations, Patty. We'll get your information and get that on out to you. All right. So the next prize, and forgive me, I don't have the exact dates that this was released on. I believe Lauren's looking that up for me. Thank you, Lauren. But this one is a full collection called Waterworld. 13 different designs in 3 sizes each. Each size 7 by 12 and up. Uses quilting and applique to create this. A lot of different embroidered designs using, and I want to try to see if I can show you the picture close enough. So you have a water scene there, and you'll be able to see it better if you go to the website and actually look up Waterworld. But whenever it goes from the above water scene and transitions to below water, we do all of the embroidery and everything, but we put organza on top of it to kind of give it an underwater feel to it. So it kind of moves down those colors, making it as if you're looking through water to see it. So they're fun techniques to use. Quilting, embroidery, applique are pretty much the only techniques you need to know for this one. So a really fun technique and beautiful collection, in my opinion, as well. Go ahead and type in water in the comments to be eligible for this prize. Water is the word. All right. So, Lauren, I don't need it fixed, but I can't quite see the screen. Is it still showing the hoop stitch out?
It is.
Okay.
It is.
So as we're watching this, you can see the satin stitching cutting right through the puffy foam, which is handy because I obviously put down a huge sheet of puffy foam, and I don't want to have to go back and cut that out later because that's a lot of little intricate cuts. Fortunately, when the satin stitch goes through the puffy foam, it perforates. So it's going to pull right out at the end when we're ready to finish this up. And let's see here. It can kind of be seen here with the puffy foam itself. This is the 3mm version, but as it goes through, it's just going to basically cut it up. So the needle puncture holes in a satin stitch being practically side by side is going to essentially cut that. That's important to know because you got to keep in mind that not all material is meant to have certain stitching on it because it can perforate. In this case, it's a blessing because we want it. But if I'm stitching on like those zipper bags I gave out as a prize earlier, these vinyl zipper bags, we use actual clear vinyl, a medium, no thicker than an 8-gauge clear vinyl on this. And when we're stitching on clear vinyl, if we use that same density of satin stitch, it's going to perforate that as well because it's a non-woven material. So anytime you're using non-woven materials, mylar, cardstock, vinyl, etc., that you don't want to perforate, we create designs that are specially digitized with a much wider stitch density to prevent that perforation. In this case, we did not do that because we want it to perforate. What's that winner, Lauren?
It is Rita Cabalgo.
Rita Cabalgo?
Yes.
Rita Cabalgo, you are the winner. Congratulations. And that is for Waterworld.
And Waterworld was released in, I just got it, 2017. It was, I'll come back to it.
That's okay. Lauren's getting that reference date for you for my All Access members.
September of 17.
September of 2017 is when this collection came out as well, Waterworld. So also kind of stay tuned for a lot more education we have coming out because we do have on our website under the Customer Center, under PDF tutorials, which is free for everyone to access, we have our entire All Access list there. So anything that's been released in All Access is listed there in alphabetical order with the date it came out. So that way you know that you're not double purchasing something that you already have in your All Access catalog if you're a club member of ours. If not, I implore you to reach out to us so we can tell you what that's all about because it's going to save you the most amount of money when it comes to building your embroidery software library. All right. Now that that's all done, we're going to finish this up. So this is a new technique. Before I get all happy and pull this out and start doing stuff to it, I want to make sure I go back and recheck my steps here. There was nothing in the number steps after it told me to run the satin stitching, so I can just set my number steps aside. And I'm going to go back over to the picture steps. Step O was saying run the final machine step. It'll be the specially digitized puffy foam satin stitches. Step P, peel the excess puffy foam away from the design with a gentle tug. It's kind of giving you a tip there also in that step. That's what that hook sound is. It's basically saying there's no need for scissors in this step. The satin stitches will perfectly perforate the foam, allowing it to peel away. So we'll go ahead and you can see there how well that perforated to remove that foam. So now that that's done, okay, I pulled out the outside like it showed. Step Q, saying it should look something like this, but what about all the pieces under there? That's where you're probably going to need another tool to help get those out. Step R, using a pair of tweezers. I'm just going to use the seam ripper. It's perfectly fine. Grab the puffy foam remnants and start pulling the pieces away. So getting in here, pulling those out. And if you accidentally see there's a little piece later on, it doesn't matter. You don't have to have this part completed before you take it out of the hoop. I'm just going along with exactly how it's explained in the tutorial to prevent any confusion. And as you can see, as I'm pulling this out, you can see how raised those satin stitches are, giving it that puffy look. So for those of you who have been fans in the past of, again, I'm just referencing the most popular place you've probably seen this is sports memorabilia, like hats that have this type of puffy foam in them with the raised embroidery. This type of special digitizing and material is what creates that effect.
Will you repeat when Waterworld was released again, September 17th?
Yes, Waterworld, that full collection I just gave away, was released in September of 2017. It is also available on the website for you. All right. Again, that was September 2017 for Waterworld. So step R was telling me to go ahead and remove all the excess puffy foam. Step S is basically going through saying as you begin removing it, the embroidered fabric will become visible. Even from the tiny spaces. The only thing I would caution is if you're using a seam ripper like I just did, the reason they're showing you tweezers is it leaves out a lot of room for error that you can create with scissors or a seam ripper. Because if I go whole hog in there, I can actually puncture it and rip the design. So if you're really familiar with your seam ripper, that's perfectly fine. Otherwise, I would recommend sticking with the tweezers. Once all the puffy foam has been removed in step T, your origami design should look something like this. Again, the colors are different from what's in the tutorial because we just picked different colors. You can also see here that if I did not match the top thread with the puffy foam, then some of the puffy foam might be sticking out. And for instance, if I used a black top thread with a white puffy foam, it could look unsightly. So now we're going to go ahead and step U, remove the design from the hoop. Just going to pop that right out. Now in the tutorial, it's showing you water soluble and it's telling you to trim closely because you don't want to take a whole sheet of water soluble over to the sink and try to rinse it all out. So you just want to trim it closely in step U. Step V is telling you that when you do that, instead of just washing this whole thing, because you may not have puffy foam that is washable, it might dissolve. So pay attention to that when you purchase it. You can just take a little foam brush like they have in here, dip it in some water. Warm water works best, even with some OxyClean, and just kind of brush that away. That's what they're showing you in step V. I just went ahead and tore all that tear away off of there. Now, one thing you're going to notice, let me see if I can get something to contrast it. Let's use this foam laid on here. See all these fibers sticking around from the tearaway? It's a reason a lot of people prefer using water soluble over tearaway. However, and this is I'm just using a regular charcoal lighter here. You can use a tea candle. We have those lit on the floor sometimes when we're doing this, or a lighter. And very carefully, do not hold me responsible if you don't know how to do this. But you're going to take the flame and just whip it quickly around the edge. You can instantly see how all those fibers soaked right up to the satin stitch. And it gets rid of that unsightly mess around the edge. This works great with if you're using like rayon thread.
You're a little out of shot.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
Thank you. This works great if you're using rayon thread for the satin stitch finish or poly sheen. Metallic thread, however, if you use metallic thread for this, flame can cause the metallic thread to break. So I would just caution against that. If you still want any of that additional white to be gone, just take a magic marker and color in the side. It's literally how we do it in Stephen Wilson's studio with all the freestanding we do there. We utilize a lot of tearaway, but water soluble, again, is perfectly fine. Now that we've done that, you can go back through. I'm not going to do it on the video, but trim up any other loose threads or anything else that are bothering you. And it tells you to get a brooch pin. Brooch, tomato. Obviously, don't wear them that much. And a hot glue gun shows you where to basically just glue it on the back, which Lauren went ahead and did with this butterfly. And that's basically how you attach it. So again, our back looks nice and neat. So does our front, with just a few more things to clean up there. And then your origami brooch is now ready to pin on anything. You can also stitch this directly on anything you want. Basically attach whatever you want to the back. I'm interested to see what y'all will do with it. So send us in your pictures. Be sure to show us, tag us in it, post it to your Facebook, whatever you like to do. And yeah, so once again, that is $10 off for the rest of the day. The origami brooches on from Anita's Express, which puts its price point, was that $19.95? $19.95 is the sale price at $10 off, typically $29.95 for the Anita's Express. Sorry, it's blocked on the screen, Lauren. But yeah, so thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you doing the stitch out with me. Just as a reminder, you can go back and rewatch this. It will be pinned to our Facebook page as well as our YouTube. And be sure to be on the lookout for another stitch along that we'll be bringing you from Anita Good Design. Thank you.
Will you remind winners?
I got a reminder for you.
Yep. The winners of the prizes to email addresses at the email address.
Yes. Winners of the prizes, email us at customerexperience@anitagoodesign.com so that we can get those prizes to you. Once again, if you won one of the 4 prizes that we gave away here, email us at customerexperience@anitagoodesign.com so that we can get your information. Once again, thank you very much for tuning in. I look forward to doing more of these with you, and have a wonderful day.